metric is valid, like summation of k equals to 0 till n, and then probability of x equal to k is equal to 1. Then later on, proceeding with that, like we saw about the CDF of random variable, where CDF is nothing but its cumulative distribution function, which where we focused about the discrete random variable, and like we saw the graph for the discrete random variable over there. Then we solved some problem which were like probability of x which belongs to 1 and less than equals to 3. Then on like further proceeding, we talked about the properties that CDF has to follow. So the properties were nothing like it was non-decreasing, the right continuous. Then like if the value of CDF is 0, then it is at the when x it tends to minus infinity, and if the value of CDF is 1, then it is at x it tends to infinity. Then we talked about the independence of random variables, where we saw like two variables, capital X, capital Y, which are random variable, and those are said to be independent if like probability of capital X is less than equal to small x, and y capital Y is less than equal to small y, which is equal to probability of individual like product of capital X less than small x into probability of capital Y less than small y, where like we talked about the joint CDF, which we say like probability of capital X less than equal to X and then capital Y less than equal to Y. So like further proceeding, we talked about averages, where we saw like mean, we calculated averages, then we saw about expected value, and we saw like numerical questions where we had 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, and we had to calculate how we will do. So about the expectation of random variable, like we saw expectation of x, which is the average of x at different possible values, which is equal to like summation of x, where probability of capital X is equal to x. And then like we talked about indicator random variable, where we saw like x is equal to 1 if there is an event happens, and x equals to 0 like in any other condition. Then we talked about like what is the fundamental bridge. So if we say like it's the expectation of x where the probability of event happens. Then we got to do some more numerical problems. Then like we talked about the another way of like same expectation, which was uses the properties of linearity. So like if we talk about properties, like we can say like expectation of x plus y is equal to summation of individual expectation of x and y, which is like applied even if x and y are dependent. And the other property like which we saw was expectation of cx, where c is a constant. Then we can take that c out, and then we can say like c expectation of x. So these were the properties and the topics which we covered in the last class. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the recap. So just a correction. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So regarding CDFs, so if x tends to minus infinity, then the probability that x less than or equal to x goes to 0. And if x tends to infinity, then probability that x less than or equal to x goes to 1. So what was said was slightly the reverse. I mean, the converse of the statement was said, but this is the actual statement. So if x tends to minus infinity, then you can have the probability going to 0. But it need not be the case that when the probability, the RHS is 0, it means that the x is at minus infinity. So just a correction. And with that, we can start today's class. So these are the key points that I would like all of you to remember before we start the class. So we saw in the last class how to see expectations as averages. I mean, expectations are basically averages, and how we saw like two ways of interpreting the same thing. So the first one was when we had a list of numbers, like how do you take the average? You sum it up and then divide it by the cardinality, which is n here. Or like you can see how many times it repeats, weighted by that. And the weight is the probability here. And then you multiply which number it was and then sum it up. All right. Then we saw to calculate the expectation of Bernoulli random variable, which was just P. Then that for the binomial random variable, which was NP. And for the indicator random variable, which is same as the Bernoulli random variable, which is P again. And then we saw about linearity of expectations and also the second property where you can pull the constant out of the expectation. So with these in mind, let's proceed by calculating the expected value of a hypergeometric distribution. Okay, so let's start with a concrete example. So say we have 5 cards here, and let x be the random variable denoting the number of aces. All right, so we have seen this example many times before. Now what do we have to find? So we have to find the expected value of x. Now the easiest way to think about this would be to think in terms of indicator random variables. So the number of aces can be maximum up to how many? So how many aces can you have?
Children, I hope you're able to use the chat box.
Uh, so the maximum is 4, but how many? I mean, 0 is also a possibility. So that would be 5. Then in that case, you can have 0 number of aces, 1 number of aces, and up to 4 number of aces. So that's 5 cases. So let's denote these 5 cases with xj. All right, which means that indicators that the card is ace. All right. Now, to find the expected value, we can see that x is same as x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus x5. So these are the 5 cards. Each of them can either be an ace or not. All right. And if the first card is an ace, the indicator random variable x1 goes to 1. So to find the total number of aces, you just need to sum up all these indicator random variables. Now we know about the linearity of expectation. So what you can just do is this. So this is what you have. Now, do note that in this case, x1, x2, x5 are not independent. And that is because this follows from the hypergeometric distribution, and we have seen this before. But you still can apply linearity of expectation here. And the thing to note here is what is the expected value of x1? Can someone tell me what is the expected value of x1? All right, to make things more concrete, I can say that, all right, I mean, it should be fairly clear, I think. So you have 5 cards in your hand, and you know that the number of aces can be at most 4, and you know that uh, deck of cards is 52 in number. So what is the expected value of x1? All right. So how do you express the expectation in terms of probability? So x1 is an indicator random variable. So what is expected value of x1?
Children, you need to pay a little attention. Nisha, Sahana,
Okay.
Saurabh, Sukhpreet.
So it's the probability that the first card is an ace. What is that probability? So you are being dealt. Uh, all right. So you have four aces. What is the probability that a card is an ace? Like the first card is an ace. 4 over 52. Exactly. So this is 4 over 52. And now we need to use symmetry here. So what is the symmetry that you can observe? So here x2 is a different random variable which denotes that the second card is an ace. So there's no difference between the first card, second card, or the fifth card when you look at it from a high level. What I'm trying to say here is, so there is no difference in the probability that the second card is an ace over that when first card is an ace. So you have not dealt the cards yet. So when you look at it from outside, so when you look at it from the perspective that you have dealt one card and the first card turns out to be an ace, then the second card becoming an ace is less likely. But that's not what I'm trying to say here. So x2 is a different random variable itself. It's just calculating the probability. I mean, it just measures the probability that the second card is an ace. So there shouldn't be a difference in the probability that the second card is an ace versus say the fifth card is an ace. So you can, I mean, it's equally likely to get any of these cards as aces. I hope what I'm trying to say is clear. Is it clear for everyone why there shouldn't be a difference in the expected values of 1 to 5? All right, good. So in that case, what you can just do is this becomes just 5 times 4 over 52. Fine. And thus you have the expected value. All right. So now to generalize this, what is 5 here? 5 is the number of cards that you had in hand. And it's same as, so the story that we all wanted to remember to think about hypergeometric distribution was just that of having W white balls and D black balls, and you sample N balls. So in this case, you are sampling 5 cards and you have 4 aces, and then for the rest of them are black here. So here it corresponds to 4 aces. You have 52 cards. So 48 other cards. And sampling 5 cards. Okay. So this is just a direct mapping between the general setting and this concrete example. All right. So can someone tell me how you can convert this expression, which is here, to the general setting in terms of WB and so on? So just think in terms of what is 4 over 52 here? Exactly. And times W by P plus W. So, so this is what you have here. Is this clear for everyone why this is true? All right, nice. So now that we know how to calculate the expectation of hypergeometric distributions, let's look at another kind of distribution, which is known as the geometric distribution. All right. So this is not related to the hypergeometric distribution directly, or I mean, even indirectly. It's you'll see why it is called the geometric distribution. Whereas the hypergeometric distribution is more related to the binomial distribution than to the geometric distribution. So this is parameterized by a single term, let's call it P. And what you do here is you carry out independent Bernoulli P trials. In the case of binomial distribution, you knew that you would conduct n of these trials. But what you are doing here is you conduct these independent Bernoulli P trials, and then you find the number of failures before the first success. This is the story that you have to remember in order to understand the geometric distribution. So you have, say, coin toss is happening. So you keep tossing, so let's call head as a success. So what you do is like you keep tossing the coin till you get a head for the first time. So once you get a head, the experiment ends and then you calculate the number of tails. So that would be the random variable here. All right. So if X is said to be a geometrically distributed random variable with parameter P, then X counts the number of failures before the first success. Is that clear? Cool. So now let's see how you describe this random variable. So we have seen like we use PMF to describe discrete random variables, and that is exactly probability that X is K. Okay. So there are two ways of seeing the same thing, but let's see when you actually count the success as well. So can someone tell me what this PMF would be like? If you are counting the success. So in K, when you say X equal to K, that includes the success you get at the end of these Bernoulli trials as well. So these are independent Bernoulli trials. So you know that the probabilities multiply and you conduct trials. So here you have K failures, which means you have conducted a total of K plus 1 trials. And the last trial is the success. So with all this info, you should be able to say what is the PMF. So obviously the PMF is in terms of the parameter P. So you need repeated failures till K trials, K minus 1 trials, because you are counting the success, and the last trial you have a success. All right. So please think in terms of coin tosses here. So P, assume it to be a fair coin and you're tossing the coin. All right. So P to the K. So, okay, let me call P as a probability of success here. Okay. So if P is the probability of success, then what? All right. So 1 minus P to the K would be the probability if you are counting not counting success. Okay, but there's a term that is missing here. But what I want is if counting success. So this K includes success. That's what I'm trying to say. Exactly. So what you have here, if you're not counting the success, is 1 minus K to the P. All right. So what would be the case for counting success? Okay, it would just be 1 minus P to the K minus 1 times P. Because you have K minus 1 number of failures and you're counting the success as well. So this will be the expression. Is this clear for everyone? So there are two ways of looking at the same thing. I mean, most textbooks follow, I mean, there are both of these are followed by different textbooks. So it's good to know like how you can go from one form to the another, one form to the next form. But are these two formulas clear for everyone? Like why there is a difference between K and K minus 1? All right. All right. So now so the next thing to do is to check if it's a valid PMF. So what do you need when it's okay. Another thing that you have to note is what is the maximum value that K can take here? So when you have an experiment which is distributed according to the geometric distribution, is there a limit on K? Like when does this experiment stop? Or a more simple question would be like how much can K go up to? This is what I'm referring to. K tends to, yeah, exactly. So K can go up to infinity, right? Because you can have consecutively have failures coming up on and on till infinity. So when you have to calculate the expectation, what you do is K is from 0 to infinity. All right. And then, sorry. So you're checking if it's a valid PMF first. Valid PMF or not. So you just have to sum it up through all the range of K and check if it's summing up to 1. Okay. Is this expression clear for checking whether it's a valid PMF or not? So we are just looking at this distribution for now. So let's leave the first one aside for a while. Let's just look at this. Is this expression clear? Why this should become 1 for the PMF to be valid? All right. So now, as you can see, P can be taken out, and this is just 1 minus P to the K, which goes from 0 to infinity. And can someone tell me what is the summation, like this infinite summation, which is a geometric series? I mean, you guys already know the answer because you know that it should sum up to 1. Even if you don't remember the formula, you should be able to say what that term would be, at least the summation. Please try to be active. Okay, cool. So that is 1 over P. And you get this 1 over P because for a geometric series, this is just good to know, I guess. So when you have, say, 1 plus x square, and so on up to infinity, this summation is equal to 1 minus 1 over x. All right. So you just plug in the value 1 minus p here. So you get 1 over p, and this will become 1. Hope that's clear for everyone. Is this clear? Why it's a valid PMF? Okay. Now let's try to calculate the expected value when x is geometrically distributed with parameter p. Okay. Let me keep this here just to. Okay. Similar to above, you know that k goes from 0 to infinity. Now the value that the random variable takes is k times the probability that x equal to k. Okay. Now this would be okay. You just substituted the values here. Now how do you go ahead? That's the question. So as before, you can actually take the p outside. Into k. All right. So the trick that you need to know here is this. Okay. So you know that the above series, which is just k equal to 0 to infinity, say for some q to the k, is 1 by 1 minus q. So this is what I just wrote above here. Okay. Now using this, can you convert this to the following form is the question. Okay, instead let's just call it 1 minus. Okay. So here q is equal to 1 minus p. So that's what we need to find out. What you can do here is just differentiate this summation. So this is an infinite summation, so you differentiate it term by term. So if you differentiate q to the k, what do you get? For the first term, it's q to the 0, then q, and so on. So can someone tell me what do you get when you differentiate q to the k? Exactly. So that is k into q to the k minus 1. All right. All right. And you differentiate the right hand side as well. So what would be the right hand side? Can someone tell me what would be the right hand side? So you differentiate both sides of the equation. Hmm, not really. I mean, it's like differentiating 1 by 1 minus x. So what is the so can someone tell me what is the differential of the right hand side? Okay, what do you get when you differentiate x to the minus 1? What is this? Yeah, minus 1 by x squared. All right. So now what do you get when you plug it in here? So you have minus q here. Instead of x, you have minus q. So what 1 minus q, sorry. Exactly. So what you get is 1 minus q to the whole square, right? But the thing you have to note here is that what does the summation go from? That is the next question. So the summation above went from 0 to infinity. So when you differentiated the first term, it was like this. So you had 1 plus q square plus and so on. So what you end up by getting by differentiation is like 1 plus 2q plus 3q square and so on. So this is the left hand side which I'm talking about. The right hand side is fixed. All right. So the summation goes from what to infinity? So it's from 1 to infinity. Is that clear for everyone? Yeah. Yeah, it goes from 1 to infinity, right? So what you need is a summation from 0 to infinity of the uh, form above, right? Okay. So how do you use this? Now what you have to think is how do you use this formula, which we have here, the second one, to solve this? That's the question. So 1 minus p is q here, but you have a k minus 1 sitting here. So what can you do? Can someone tell me what you can do to make it of this form? All right, you can just multiply it by a q. A q is just a constant, so you multiply it by q and then divide it by q. So that way what you have is the whole summation gets multiplied by q in each term, and it will just look in the form that we want here, which goes from 0 to infinity. Is that clear? So what I'm trying to say is just this. So you need this summation. Let me simplify this further. Okay, so what you can see is that in this summation, k equal to 0 goes to 0. So the first term goes out. So what you are summing from is essentially 1 to infinity. Fine. So what you need is a sum from 1 to infinity with the exponent k. So this is the expression that you want to map. Now what you can do is see that this expression is, so if p is equal to 1 minus q, then this is 1 over p square. Okay, is this clear? So I've changed the summation above to 1 to infinity by noticing that the first term is 0, and after that I substituted p to be 1 minus q, and then I got the summation to be 1 over p square. And now I have to multiply this equation 2 here with q so that the exponent becomes q to the k, which is what we want here. So what you finally end up getting is q over p square. Without the, okay, so this will be 1 minus p to the k into Is this clear? Okay. So now if you look at this summation, there's a p that you have to multiply with. So you multiply a p on both sides. So what you have is okay. So now you finally have the expected value. Is this clear for everyone? So it's just a bunch of manipulations and differentiating this geometric series. But this is a common trick that people use to solve such series. When you have a series of the following form, you can differentiate this geometric series to get the required LHS, and then you can find out what is RHS. Okay, is this clear for everyone? All right, cool. So now we have calculated the expected value of a geometric random variable as well. But do note that this expectation is true when we are not counting the success. So what we calculated the expectation for is if we have x as this distribution. All right. So the question now is what about the expectation if x has this distribution? So when you are counting the success. All right. So that is the thing that we need to find out right now. But do note that the difference between this and this is just that you are counting the success or not counting the success. All right. So x is a random variable which counts the number of failures in this distribution. All right. So when you have to convert it to something which counts the next success as well, what do you do? The question is this. Say if y is the first distribution which counts the success, how can you write y in terms of x which counts the number of failures till first success? If you have this and the number of failures including first success. Okay. So how do you go from x to y? So I just need an expression for y in terms of x. What do you need here? I mean, what are you missing? This should be really simple. So the only difference is whether you're counting the success or not. And you always know that the distribution ends with a success. Exactly, plus 1. So y is equal to x plus 1. Is this clear for everyone? So you're just counting the success. So you have one success additional to count, right? Yeah, that's it. And now things should be simple. You don't have to do the whole calculation again to find the expectation. So you can use linearity of expectation and note that this is the case. And when you solve for this is what you have. 1 over. So this is a cleaner looking expression than the one above. And this is more intuitive in some sense. And this is something that you can actually remember without, I mean, this might look harder to remember, right? I mean, it might not be as well, but this is something you can easily remember. And this has an easy interpretation to it as well. So when you say that you're repeating, say P is half. Okay, so to get a heads, like the probability is half. So what this says is like the expected number of times you have to repeat to get a heads. So how many times do you have to toss so that you get the heads? And you know that for a fair coin, P is half. And what this says is 1/2, which is 2. So it means that you have to toss 2 times to get a heads on expectation, on average, which is very intuitive. Because you have two sides, you toss 2 times. So one of the times, it's highly likely that you'll get a heads. I hope the intuition is clear. I'm not saying anything formal. I'm just saying this expression is more intuitive than this expression. Is the idea clear for everyone? Oh, nice. Now let's move on to something which we skipped the last class, which was the proof of linearity of expectation. The proof of linearity of expectation. Okay. So what you have to show is, say you have a random variable t, which is x plus y. Then the goal is to show that expected value of t is expected value of x plus expected value of y. Okay. And this is true even if x and y are dependent. That is a key point. And as you learn more things about probability, you will know that this is a very cool trick to always use, because if the random even if the random variables are dependent, which in most cases you will have in when you are solving real problems, you can use linearity of expectations, and this will just help you solve a lot of problems. Okay, so this is what we need to prove now. Okay, since we have only looked at the discrete random variable case, let's only do it for this case for now. Okay, let's try to build up some intuition here. So intuition, what you have on the left hand side is just this probability that t equals t. Okay, this is the expected value of t. And what you need in the on the right hand side is probability that x equal to x plus sigma probability that y equals y. So this is what you need. All right. To show, I mean, this is what you have to show. Is this clear? I mean, I've just expanded the expectation formula. Okay. Now, if you look at the right hand side, how do you combine these two expressions to get the left hand side? It's not very clear, at least for me, because x plus y, if you try to combine, these probabilities won't combine directly, and x and y can be dependent. Do note that. That is a key point. You have to observe this. So now, I mean, I don't know of any way of directly combining the RHS together to get the LHS. Even if you substitute small t is equal to x plus y, you will have problems combining these two terms. All right. Now the other way is to actually look at the left hand side and split the left hand side to make it into x equal to x and y equal to y. So let's try to do that. So the probability that t is equal to t can be written by LOTP, the law of total probability, as t equals t given x equal to x times probability that x equal to x. So I'm summing over all the possible values of x, dividing the sample space where x equal to x. So then this is just LOTP. I hope everyone remembers this. So is this expression clear for everyone? Why this is true? So you're conditioning on the fact that x equal to x, and then you're splitting up the sample space. And for those cases, you're looking at what is probability t equal to t. This is what this expression means. Okay. This is by LOTP. Now, what you need is how do you, so in the case where we saw how to sum up two random variables, so we saw that the sum of two random variables with the same p in binomial distribution, the sum of two binomially distributed random variables x and y with the same parameter p, x plus y was again a binomial with a parameter. All right, so this is what we had seen a few classes back. And the trick that I mean, what we used there was the fact that probability that t equal to t given x equal to x was just could be written as t is x plus y. So x plus y is t. All right, and you have conditioned on the fact that x equals x here. So you can substitute x equals x. So this is small x. So this is same as saying y equals t minus x. Okay. Is this clear for everyone? So you know that t, the capital T is sum of the random variables x and y. And if x takes the value small x, then y takes the value t minus x. Yes, exactly. This is for the discrete case. So is this clear till now? But okay. So but when x and y were independent, which is not the case here, because x and y can be dependent. But for the binomial proof that we had seen for x plus y, x and y were independent random variables. And hence we could write this as probability of y equals t minus x into probability of x equals x. And then we went ahead to solve this. This is what we did there. But that trick won't work here because x and y can be dependent. All right. So again, we are stuck with this. So this method also gets us stuck. Now, what is the next thing that we can do? So now let's look at what expectation actually means from another viewpoint. So I hope you all remember this pebble example that we have been seeing. All right. So if this is the set of all pebbles that you can pick, and x is some random variable, x is a random variable which maps the pebbles to some real number. It can be any random variable. We are not assuming anything here. So x is the only thing that we know is x is discrete. X is a discrete random variable. So let's assume for now that x takes values greater than or equal to 0 to simplify things. Okay, so if x takes values greater than or equal to 0, what this means is there are a set of outcomes in the sample space when x equals 0. All right. There are a set of outcomes when x equals 1. Similarly for 2 and similarly for 3. Okay. Is this clear? So to get the value, so x is a function which maps from the sample space to any real number, and say the real number it gets mapped to 0. So then there should be a corresponding set of outcomes in omega, and for x equal to 0, let us denote this as the outcome, x equal to 1, and so on. Okay, is this idea clear? So you're just splitting the sample space based on the value that the random variable takes. All right. Now we know that the definition of expectation of x is just a sigma x, x times probability that x equals x for discrete random variables. Okay. I'm saying there is another way to actually see the same thing. Now let us denote small s to be an outcome in this sample space. So s, small s will be something like this, or this, or this, or anything. So one of these. Now, how do you convert the formula above to something which is dependent on the outcome? Okay. So what is small x here? Small x is the value that the random variable x takes. Okay. So we can write this as x of s. X is a function from the sample space. So when the input for x is small s, then the output is small s, the output is small x. All right. So I'm just substituting for x here. And now we need to see how you get this probability of x equals x. Okay. So where do you get this probability of x equal to x? When you pick a sample point s, and say you have picked the sample point, the so let's say you pick this sample point. Now you know that the corresponding x is 0. Okay. Now what is the probability that x is 0? So the probability that x is 0 is same as the probability that you pick this pebble, this pebble, or this pebble, or this pebble. So there are 4 ways you can get x equal to 0. So basically the probability that x equal to 0 is same as the summation of the probability that x is this s plus this s plus this s. Is that clear? So all I'm trying to say is that when x equals 0, the probability that x equals 0 is same as the probability that you pick one of these. Is this clear? Okay. So if that is clear, then the second term should be pretty clear for you. So since we are summing up over all the sample points in this omega, we will be also summing up over x equals 0, x equals 1, and so on. Okay. So now S, the smallest, runs over all the sample points. So in turn, it will be actually summing up over x equals 0 separately, x equals 1 separately, x equal to 2, and also x equal to 3. So what you can write is the probability that you get the sample point S. Okay. Is this clear for everyone? If anybody has a doubt, please ask, because this is the proof. I mean, now you are not going to do any sort of manipulations to actually calculate the expectation. I mean, this is just this. If this is clear, now everything else should be clear, and the proof is fairly trivial after this. Okay. So since this is clear, I'm just going to the proof directly, the proof of linearity. So what you need is expected value of t. Now, according to this formula, you can write this as T of S times the probability of S. Okay, I'm just substituting this formula here with T. Now you know that T is a random variable, which is the sum of 2 random variables. So you know that T of S is equal to X of S plus Y of S times P of S. Now you have the answer directly. So you just split the sum. And according to this formula, this is E of x, and the right hand side is E of y. So we have shown the linearity of expectations. And you can repeat this for like n random variables using induction to get for n variables. So here t is just a sum of two random variables. You can make it to n random variables as well. All right. Is the proof clear for everyone? So most textbooks I think have like much complicated proofs, but this is the easiest way to think about the expectation when you are calculating it for discrete random variables. Is this clear? Okay. And please do try to remember this form of expectations. It might come handy. Now, to see why this is true, we can check a few extreme cases. So say x and y are dependent random variables. So this is the extreme case. So x is entirely dependent on y, x is same as y, x equals y. So what do you have on the left hand side? So you want to know what is e of x plus y. Now since e of x, I mean x equals y, you can write this as e of 2x. Now by the property of, the property that we have seen before, this is same as 2ex. And again, you can convert this back to e of x plus e of y because x equals y. So even for the dependent case, the extreme version of the dependent case, you can see that the linearity of expectation is true. Okay. So what we are left to prove is this expected value, that cx is c into expected value of x, and this will be a homework. All right. So I think we have just over 2 minutes left, and yeah, I can actually stop here. Okay. Just to give an intro to the next class, what we'll be looking at is what we call as negative binomial distributions. And what this actually, the story, I'll just end this lecture with the story. So the story that you can think about is you have independent Bernoulli p trials as before. So in the case of geometric random variables, we wanted the number of failures till the first success. But here we want to know the number of failures before the rth success. So you're not just looking at the first success, you can have up to r successes. I mean, exactly r successes. So this is the story that we'll be seeing next class. And from there, we'll derive the PMF, calculate the expectation, and see a few examples of linearity of expectations. All right. That's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So children, next class, ensure that you revise all these topics. Come prepared.
So I've actually gone really slow this class and tried to like explain even simple things. But if you guys come revised, then we can actually move at a faster pace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have a nice time, sir. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.